I'm Kitty Whitfield, co-founder of New Strength and Saturée, creator of pro-metabolic food supplements and seriously saturated skincare. And today I'm joined by my co-host and co-founder Craig McDonald, who always tries to make me laugh when I do the intros.
We were laughing before this, but
we're like, Vic probably listens to these. It's like, you idiots.
I wasn't intentionally trying to make you laugh, but I was giggling.
You were giggling.
Yeah.
I don't know why you think it's funny. It's so funny.
What were we even laughing at?
I don't know. Yeah, we were laughing at all the, the rude. We've had a bit of a week this week of, like women telling me that they don't want to look like me on Instagram, telling me that I should stop swearing, telling me that they've lost all respect for me because I posted a half-naked photo. I'm like, for fuck's sake. I said to...
You're always so nice. I just don't know why you don't tell them to fuck off.
Well, because I just said to this lady, I said, look, you can unfollow me. Just unfollow me. If you're so offended, but, I thought that it'd stop after you shared all your, surgery photos. I'm like, they're just boobs. I covered the bloody nipples, right? Isn't it so funny how people get so offended?
Well, it's interesting that you've always been that way and, for them to actually come in and ask you to stop being exactly who you are, it's kind of like, are you fucking right? Like, I don't fucking tell you what to do.
Oh,
just because you chose to come onto this account, if you go back all the way back to the start, you'll see the same.
I've consistently been swearing,
all the same things, and now all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I'm offended by that.
Oh no! If I talk about sex, remember when I talked about in one episode? And ladies, if you're listening to this and you're offended by the word penis, stop listening because I'm going to say it. But I was talking about how when Craig walks around naked, that I feel like. I just want to go up and grab his penis. And I was talking to my friend Libby and she said, it's just like this bell that needs to be rung. And I was like, that is bloody brilliant because that's exactly what it is. Yeah. I feel like I want to go up and ring that bell.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to some other people about Emma and she's like, yeah, that's totally what it is. I'm like, I want to ring that bell too. I'm like, how many other women out there want to ring that bell?
Yeah. I know. Especially you being a rat up a drain pipe, like that's something that really stuck into your brain. So it was just like, oh, there it is, the bell.
Gotta ring the bell. Poor Craig.
Yeah.
Poor Craig's penis.
But it's not done in this is quite exciting sort of a thing. It's just like this little...
aggressive.
Yeah.
Got to aggressively ring that bell.
Ferret that comes up and goes, dang.
I'm like, Anyway, we better stop talking about it before we offend more people.
Yes.
So today's episode is not about Craig's penis. Or about people telling me to stop swearing.
That is a podcast in itself.
If I want to post half-nude photos of myself, I will.
Yeah. And if you don't like it, get fucked.
That's right. Unfollow. Hit unsubscribe. Don't listen to the free podcast.
Yep.
But anyway, so today's episode is about changing your exercises too frequently and how this can affect your progress in the gym. And then we want to talk more about, it's normal to not make progress every single week. And, I think sometimes women... might think, they need to deload or they might think they need to change the exercise when in reality it's normal. Like I have some weeks where I hit the same numbers and even weeks when I'm tired, like recently, because we've just been burning the candle at both ends, which means my training's been shit. And so some days I just go in and just like hit whatever numbers. I just train. I wouldn't even try to match the numbers I had last week. And now I'm back on the wagon now, being, getting enough sleep and eating a bit more food. I'm like, my numbers are coming back. But anyway, so why, Craig... should you not change your exercises every month or every week or, talk about that?
First and foremost, it does depend on where you are in your training journey. Like if you're an advanced lifter and you've gone through the rotational of exercises, let's say if we're talking about a deadlift, you've got your conventional deadlift and then you got like your Romanian deadlift and then your stiff leg deadlift. If you're an advanced person, you're generally going to be able to execute those pretty well because they're all relatively the same movement. They're a hinge movement, but there are sort of slight differences in how you execute and how you set up and that sort of thing, but it's still based around a hinge. So if you're good at hinging in the hinging movement pattern, then generally you should be able to adapt to any kind of one of those exercise variations pretty quickly. If you're a beginner though and you're still learning those fundamental movements,
which is what I would say a lot of the women that follow us. They're beginners to intermediates. Like I wouldn't say anyone's got 10 years lifting experience.
Yeah, no, I'm fucking getting to that.
Yeah,
all
okay,
right,
Roger.
Calm down.
Yeah.
So for the most people listening, you're generally going to be kind of beginning to intermediate lifters, that the movement patterns, when we talk about hinges and squats and single leg movements and pushing and pulling and all those sort of things, you've got the exercise variations within those. And each movement pattern, you need a sort of set of skills to do. And for the most part, most people, because based on your lean body mass, So if you've got your total body weight and your body fat percentage, the difference is going to be your lean body mass. That is going to have a relative level of strength attached to it. So if you have X amount of lean body mass, you should be capable of lifting X amount of weight. That's not always the case, or it's very rarely the case, because it does depend on other factors like, how you're built and lever lengths and different things like that. But in most cases, it's about just how well developed you have at the skill of those particular movements. So in the case of, say, hinge, like you might start off with just a conventional deadlift. It's got a little bit more leg drive in it because your knees are a bit more bent. You drive off the floor and you come to the lockout. Most people, when they're starting, they have the capability of lifting a lot more, but the skill is what lets them down. And there is and it could be from, maybe they start at 40 kilos. They might actually be capable of lifting 90 to 100 kilos. But they've got about a 40 or 50 kilo skill development window in which they need to get up to that particular point. And generally after that point is where they'll start to see a lot more changes in their body composition, because now they're actually breaking into new territory of building actual new lean muscle and that sort of thing. But there will be a skill window during that time. And not to say that your body won't change during that time. I'm just saying that to see that really massive change in your physique, it's going to require probably a lot more if you're only starting at 40 kilos. But there is about a 40 or 50 kilo window of just skill development that you would be better off just staying with that same movement and just like a wet towel, just squeezing every little drip out of it until it absolutely gets to the point where whether you can assess it or if you've got a coach who can assess it and just going, yep, okay, we've done enough kind of, program changes. Maybe we've worked in a few different rep ranges. Maybe we've adjusted your exercise structure depending on where it is and how we're doing it and that sort of thing. And it's just not budging at that point. Yeah, absolutely. That's the time when it's like, okay, let's pause on that particular movement, that particular exercise variation. Let's now move to like a stiff leg, or now let's move to a Romanian deadlift or something like that. And that would apply across the board. Maybe you go from doing a wide grip lat pull down to doing more of a single arm, neutral grip pull down or something like that. There's going to be an exercise variation there. Everything that you can look at, and this is why tracking your data is so important, because you can see when things are starting to stall. And you can also look at, has my nutrition been on point? Has my sleep been on point? I mean, you just made that point before that kind of be burning the candle at both ends a little bit, and progress has been a bit stagnant. That's not a reason to change anything that you're doing. That's all the variables outside of the gym.
That's a reason to get your shit together?
Yeah. That's a reason to not have late nights and do all those things. But it's just like, fix those things first, give it a couple of weeks, then all of a sudden if you start breaking through new ground again, it's just like, okay, well, I didn't actually need to change that exercise out. And you're better off, because the more and more you do anything, the better you get at it, right? So if you can, like up until about October last year, I'd pretty much been on the same structure for about 18 months.
That's a long time.
Through my cut period and then through my regain phase. I'd made a couple of little exercise variations, but they were mainly like around like bicep curls and the odd pulling exercise. Like I didn't change my stiff leg. I was doing the V hack squats. I was doing the leg press. I was doing the Raptor chest press machine. Like there was all these, and you can just see it like week after week after week. And there was the odd time where those would stall a little bit, or a couple of weeks where they would stall. But then all of a sudden I would jag an extra rep, or I would change the rep range and jag a few more reps and add a bit more weight and whatever. And it's just, certainly as you especially at my stage, I've been doing it for a long time. I'm not going to always make progress every single week, but I just know, I really know intuitively now. I'm like, yep, this exercise is done.
Yeah.
It's time to change. But I think for most people, they have a lot longer period of time in which they can continue to make progress on. And I think instead of just going, this exercise is not working anymore and just throwing the baby out with the bathwater sort of thing, it's just like, no, step back for a second. Yeah. Is it only been 1 week? Well, that doesn't mean anything, right? Yeah. You're going to go through like probably 2 or 3 weeks, especially as you become more advanced. 2-3 weeks where you don't make any progress is pretty normal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's not, and I think it's just normalizing that.
Yes. And it's just understanding.
Because women think, because we talk about progression and adding weight to the bar, and it's not going to happen every single week. No. And sometimes too, like even with me,
it will as a beginner. I think that first 12 to 18 months, you should be able to do it, especially with all those big lifts, you should be able to do it.
If you get your technique.
Maybe the odd week here and there. But unless something else is happening, like you come back from holidays or you've been sick or something like that, yeah, fair enough. But if everything's on point, you should be able to continue to make, you know, progress. A rep jump or a weight jump or something like that.
Yeah, but they're still small though, right? Like it's not like you're
jumping.
Totally.
You're jumping 5 and 10 kilos,
adding 10 kilos every week. Yeah, it might be I'm doing, you know, like we've talked about this before, the progression system that you like to use. And again, this is not the best way to do it or the only way. This is just an example, which we enjoy, is doing a heavy first set in the 6 to 9 rep range and then a back off set in the 10 to 13 or 10 to 15, depending on what the exercise is. And I really like that because it sort of gives you a lot of room for progression. So some weeks, you know, I might only get an extra rep or I might add just a little bit more weight and then I drop it down into that lower rep range again and then I slowly build back up till I get up to 9. And that really, I think you get a lot of leeway out of that, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I think, well, it's a good progression system because, you know, like I keep adding reps until I hit this point and then I add weight and then I will drop down in reps and then I'll accumulate those back and then I'll add weight again. So, you know, you can mix and match like all the different rep ranges. You don't have to do 6 to 9. You can do the lighter set first and then the heavier set afterwards if you want to.
Like that.
Yeah, I've done that before. We've done it where you do 3 sets. You do like a light, medium, and heavy set. You know, like it all kind of works. And you know, and I think making some of those decisions on whether to adjust it and just going, you know, I want to do a lighter set first and then a heavy set, and it's like obviously how we use Recomposer and just focusing on and progressing that max over time is really so. You know, and that aligns with the research as well, is that you can build muscle in any rep range between the 6 to 30 rep range. So it doesn't matter. Sometimes you just do employ a particular strategy at that point in time that goes, I'm going to do sets of 12 on this.
Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, there might be times where you go, no, I just want to pull heavy. I'm feeling good at the moment. I'm going to pull like sets of 6s or 7s or something like that and then do a lighter set. If I did a set of 12 or 13 on the first set, I wouldn't drop the weight back and do like an even higher rep set. In that case, I would actually increase the weight and do a lower rep set. So both work ultimately, but these are just obviously little tactics that you can use to continue.
I think something too that progress. I've just noticed is, and you know, from my own training, is sometimes in a program or I'll go, okay, I really want to push this certain exercise and I really want it, like for example, a stiff leg deadlift. It's pretty taxing when I push it to failure. And then if I really have a good session and I feel good and I push that hard, then I find the next session I have with the, what do you call it, bloody hack squat. Like I'm obviously not feeling as fresh because I've really pushed it.
Yeah.
So I might just match the reps or only make a little bit of progress on the hack squat. So sometimes it's about having, like, I'm not saying this is what everyone has to do, but having a focus and going, I really want to build up this exercise in this program. Like it's the main one that I want to build up.
Yes.
And, you know, like if I think I had missed the stiff leg deadlift session, so I was really fresh and I hit an all-time PB on my hack squat, 110 for 8 reps.
Yeah.
And I haven't done that again because I've been stiff leg deadlifting 3 days before it.
Yeah. And I mean, again, that highlights another point of as you become more advanced, you have to have more nuanced and narrow focuses, you know, and you'll talk about, you'll see a lot of more advanced lifters talk about like specialization programs where they'll bring, you know, say if they go, look, I really want to get my posterior chain, glutes and hamstrings, etc., to come up. So I'm going to use the stiff leg to really push that. So I'm going to push that really hard, but that means I'm going to pull some of my quad work back down to maintenance volume. So maybe you need to be doing 8 sets a week of quads, you know, a couple of sets of hack squats, a couple of sets of leg presses, a couple of sets of leg extensions to have that per week kind of threshold in which you need to make progress. Maybe you go from 8, you bring it down to 4. So now you've taken 4 sets out of those big quad exercises, which obviously eat into your fatigue. Give myself a little bit more room now to really try and push this particular exercise hard. And then when you really push that really, really hard for a little bit and it sort of starts to hit the wall, then you can bring that back, you know, or that body part, so maybe not the stiff legs. Maybe you just hold the stiff legs in terms of the weight and reps that you're doing now. You bring maybe your isolation glute and hamstring work back, and then you increase your quad work a little bit more. You know, so specialization programs like that can be really, really beneficial, but they really only make sense as you become quite advanced.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like a lot of the women that listen to this podcast and that also in our program are not at that level.
Yeah.
That we do have some clients.
Yeah, some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need to be pretty strong, like in pretty
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I reckon you can kind of start to entertain that after you've been lifting for probably about 3 years.
Oh, really?
Hard. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for most people up to that point, you just need to get strong everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's just like, everyone's going to have different, volume thresholds to a point. Some people can start at 4 sets per week. Some people need to go about maybe 10 sets per body part per week. It obviously depends on, how much time availability you have as well, and that might adjust a little bit. But what your effort level is like more people who can do generally a bit more volume, not always. Like some people can just have better recovery capacities depending on what happens in their life. But sometimes you can kind of go, well, let's actually see what some of these hard sets you're doing actually look like. Are they hard or are they really hard? Is there definitely more that could be eked out there? So, I mean, these are all the questions that you ask to ultimately kind of determine what you need to do.
So you're saying are you talking about keeping these bigger compound lifts the same but can you change out the accessories?
Yeah.
Because I know
definitely.
when we do my program, it's okay, I've had the hack squat and the stiff leg in there for ages.
Yeah.
But we've changed out some of bicep exercises or
Yes.
lat exercises or
totally.
so the accessories is fine.
Side lateral raise, you go from a cable to use a dumbbell and different things like that. Obviously all those movements have, again, at a nuanced value, different strength curves. Like a cable has consistent resistance, whereas the top part of a lateral raise, a side lateral raise is the hardest, but the bottom part, there's no resistance at all. So they change it a bit, but there's still an isolation, medial delt exercise. So it's whatever variation you do, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, okay. And would you say, because, I'll chat to women, thinking about joining our program, and they'll say, I'm just so stuck with this, certain specific exercise like a squat or a deadlift or whatever. And, they'll tell me their body weight and they'll tell me the weight that they're lifting. And it's not a lot of weight. And I'm like, you should be considerably stronger than that. So do you think it comes down to their technique?
Oh, for sure. Execution always has to come first. Yeah. I mean, the leg press is always one of those ones where, people say, I'm like, how much are you doing on the leg press? Here at Rage, I could push 250, 300 kilos on the leg press. And then when I actually look at them, it's sort of okay, you're probably doing about a quarter or a half range of motion, and that wouldn't be the same, and it's when you actually look at the exercise and how they're actually executing it, you realize it's you're barely getting into the stretch position in this movement. You're leaving so much room on the table, and you're also not controlling the eccentric. You're just thinking about getting the plate down to a point that you can really explode it back to the top again. And it's yes, you're lifting a lot of weight, but it doesn't really mean anything. So hence why leg press, in a sense, is not a good indicator of strength, because the vast majority of people are not going to get it to the range that's really legit. Because again, their execution, they haven't been shown how to do it, or they're just, people believe it's you don't want to go too deep on a leg press because of this, that, and the other. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's totally fine. I do it every week, right? My knees are pretty much near my chin. It's just it's designed to be a squat movement. You can absolutely do there. It's just, again, your execution. So I think with movements, we always talk about it first when we think about the pillars or the hierarchy. It's execution first, then your effort level, then using progressive overload element in order to continue to progress. But execution always has to come before effort, right? If you're not executing the movement well and keeping the tension on the target tissue, well, it's not wasting your time. There's still going to be some stimulus there, but certainly given how hard and how long it takes to grow muscle, you don't want to be wasting your sessions, because it's years to really significantly change your physique. So you're better off removing the ego, pulling some weight off, getting the range of motion, getting that technique down.
Yeah.
And obviously, from an injury perspective, it always makes sense to understand how to execute things.
Yeah, obviously, because you don't want to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
But it is amazing once you breathe, brace properly, get the tempo right, get the depth right.
Yeah.
How much more stimulating it is to whatever, muscle that you're using.
Yeah. Well, you think about a leg press or a squat or a hack squat, we understand that the best hypertrophy outcomes generally come from the loaded stretch position. So
what does that mean for the people that don't know what that means?
Well,
what the fuck is loaded stretch position?
Yeah, so you think about the stretch, so your quads, right? So the muscles that go from your hip joint down to your knee, they're in the stretch position. So if you get on the floor and sit on your shins and then basically sit back so your butt's sitting on your heels, all your quads are stretched, okay? So that's the stretch position for the quads. But in order for your quads to grow, there needs to be the loaded element there, right? It's not going to grow from just stretching them. There needs to be an external load to create that mechanical tension. So when we think about a leg press, most people barely get to 90 degrees. So you're only just starting to get a little bit of a stretch, and you will feel some lactic acid build up, but it's nowhere near the same as when you actually get it down to the point where your hamstrings are touching your calves. That's where that should be the minimum range for most people. Now, obviously, if you have a knee injury or something like that, obviously you can't do that for sure. But with everything being, on point, then that's where you need to get to, and all of a sudden, especially in that particular movement, the load that you can lift will significantly reduce, right? So it's just like I think my best is like 260 for 10. And that's
like you're a 93, 4 kilo male.
Yes. Yeah. And that's my head's about to explode on that last rep.
So there ain't no 60 kilo female.
No. So there's just no
the
way.
Range of motion
that there is always, when you look at someone with a body weight and look at their actual pictures and understand their body composition, if they say any numbers that, that are a little bit outrageous, it's just like, well, your physique doesn't reflect the fact that you're capable of that. So what you're doing probably isn't actually accurate.
Yeah. Or I think that I think that women, they don't really know what they're truly capable of because they have never learned how to lift properly.
Yeah.
And, I get on calls with women all the time. And a good example of this was a lady that she signed up to our program. She was so lovely. And she's like, Kitty, I've been lifting for a year and, she hasn't really been tracking her food properly. So that's another issue.
Yes.
But, she said, my body's just not changing. So I said, okay, cool. Like, what are some of the exercises that you're doing? And she said, okay, deadlift. I said, well, how much can you deadlift? And she's like, well, I actually misloaded the bar the other day and accidentally added on 20 pounds and I was deadlifting, I don't know, like 70 pounds or something. So what's that like? Or 80 pounds. So that's like divided by 2.2.
40 something kilos.
40 kilos. Yeah. And I did 8 reps. I said, so before that you were lifting even less. And she's like 80 kilos.
Yeah.
And I said, you are just massively underperforming.
Yep.
That is why your body is not changing. And I said, even though you're making some progress, I said, for example, I'm 67 kilos and I can, deadlift 150 kilos, whatever.
She's like 315 pounds or something.
And she's like, oh, okay, cool. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And it's just because she's never had anyone show her how to do it or teach her.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
You don't.
Yeah,
and I think, I just felt like when I met you and actually learned how to lift, and then obviously I've worked with lots of other different coaches over this however many years, including you. And, Thomas Lilly was one that we worked with I really enjoyed. But, I think one of his, strength is the expression of good technique.
Yes.
And, especially I think
it's a great quote.
In powerlifting, I mean, I know we're not powerlifting, but, every bit of efficiency counts when you're lifting that amount of weight.
Yes.
So, and it's so interesting. I remember like when I would squat, I had that goal of squatting 120 for 8, which I got to. And when I executed everything really well, the reps just felt so much easier and tight and efficient.
Yes.
I wasn't, losing any energy in that whole system, I guess. And I think where a lot of women go wrong, and we talk about this, mechanical tension. So it's the weight, the external weight that's going to stimulate that muscle growth, and you've got to get within 5 reps of failure. So a lot of women, they never actually get there because their technique breaks down before they can actually reach that failure.
Yep.
So therefore they don't make progress.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's really important to actually nail that technique. And you'd be so surprised at what you can achieve. Like women in our program all the time, they'll post in the Facebook group, oh my God, I just lifted 100 kilos. I'm like, fuck yeah. They never thought, Charlotte, one of our coaches, when, how much does she weigh?
It's like 58, 59 kilos.
Yeah, and she's had been running 100 kilometers, and she said to me, Craig told me I should easily be able to lift 100 kilos. And she was like, no way, I'll never. And she's done it easily. She does it for reps now.
Yeah.
So I think once you learn how to lift properly and you learn good technique, you'll be surprised at what you can do. And it's incredible. And give it time and chip away, you'll be strong. You can get really strong.
You get really
You're
strong.
way more capable than you think.
100%. Yeah. I've I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast, but when we used to own the gym, do you remember Kathy? She used to live near the gym. She used to come in.
With the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't very athletic. Poor old Kathy.
Probably the most unathletic person. I don't think she ever played any sport. Well, she didn't. She didn't play any sport when she never developed any real hand-eye coordination or anything. Super lovely, but just was a total fish out of water in the gym. And we were doing some sessions, and I just went through the whole thing, and it took her a while, but she eventually pulled 100 kilos off the ground.
She was so stoked.
She burst into tears, because she realized at that particular point in time that she really sucked, and she had the perception that she could never ever be that person. And the wonderful thing about strength training when you get good at it is it smashes so many beliefs that you had about yourself, because in its rawest form, especially with a deadlift, you've just got a barbell sitting on the ground and you just got to stand up with it. So it's the easiest movement in terms of the execution to get the skill right, but it's the absolute determiner in terms of you've got a raw weight on the ground and you just got to stand up with it, right? It doesn't get more sort of primal than that. And then, that feeling sort of hit her that she was just like, I'm using two of the big plates on both ends of the barbell. Like, these are the plates that all the guys use. And I've just been able to stand up with it like, oh my God, I never thought I could ever do this. And I just looked at it and I'm like, well, why not? I didn't lift the fucking weight. I just stood there and told you could. And you eventually did. It took us, a while to get here, but here you are.
It's the best feeling. It honestly is the best feeling, isn't it?
But she, I really noticed a change in just her attitude and how she would, like, when she'd come into the gym, like, 'cause she was quite a quiet person. She was really lovely, but just, quiet. And then all of a sudden there was this confidence, and she started being more sort of chatty Cathy in the gym a little bit more. And she was, she wanted to try things, and she's just like, oh, can you program me another day that I can do on my own? Just things that she would have never have done. And it would filter over into other areas of your life, like just being capable of lifting heavy stuff. For some people, we would think of that and just go, oh, you're just trying to be all fucking... And I'm like, no. If you've never, ever done this, you'll never understand. You'll never understand what it can actually do for you from a psychological perspective, like just your outlook. There's a level of confidence and calmness about being able to overcome something like that. And I think, it's a real shame when people go through their whole life and never truly see what their true capability was in that respect.
Well, I think it sort of keeps you on a bit of the straight and narrow too, because we all know that I'm a party girl at heart. Every now and then I get swept up in this, we have a few months of going out, socializing, have a few drinks. I'm like, fuck, my training is sucking badly, because I'm strong and I'm trying to progress, and you can't when you're tired, and we're working really hard. And I said to Craig, I'm like, that's it. I was like, that's it. I'm pushing my food up again, because I was like, got to be a bit more focused. We've got to be a bit more, less socializing in the weekend. Because I really, not less social, but less late nights, I think. Not the socializing so much, but, and just, I had a good week this week so far. I've pushed my food. I had a good session on Monday. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm back. I'm like, this is going to be a good session tomorrow with Adam. My stiff leg deadlift, like, that's it. Because it's enjoyable and fun. And, you need to be rested and you need to eat well to make progress. And you're not, again, like, it's okay to not make progress all the time. I'm not saying that, but I think it just, when your training suffers, for us, we get really, like, our training's not good. We get upset.
I fucking hate
we
it.
get sad,
It
makes us sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to me. It's something that I get so much value and has so much carryover.
So joy. It brings so much joy.
Yeah, into the rest of your life, that it's just like when you're stagnant or you're going down because of... And you know exactly why. You're like, just accept the fact that, like I had a Bucks party on Sunday night and it was a late night. I didn't get home till 1 a.m. 1 a.m. Whoa.
It's a big one for you though.
A big one for me, but I felt it in these last couple of sessions, and I'm like, fucking Bucks party, the fucking random. I'm just like,
oh, whatever. It's we have
fun.
Bucks
party.
I think
I had a great night. It was fantastic, but he's just
But we can't work all the time either. That's what we've said to each other. I don't know, after that whole baby trying thing, we were so stressed and so we did nothing on the weekends, and now we're sort of letting loose a little bit and just living life a bit more and socializing, still being good with our food and trying to get enough sleep. But, it's just, we're like, fuck it. We can't just work and, just be so boring. It's been really fun though. I've really enjoying it. I just really enjoy connecting with people, and now we've got such great friends too. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
been
definitely
good.
got to have that. And I think there's definitely an element of that helps you with your progress over time, because it's, it can become a little bit tunnel vision at time, but I think you've just got to have phases where
Yeah, phases is good.
you
Like
don't do that.
cycles. Yeah,
Yeah.
like sometimes you'll be really focused and you might
Yeah.
have a good block where you're making heaps of progress, you rested, there's no stress. And there might be some times when you just, need to pull your training back a bit, just stick with maintenance. You don't
Yeah.
have to be making progress. You just have to stay in the habit of going and lifting
Yeah.
and maintaining the muscle that you have.
Yeah, it's like over Christmas time, like the few weeks over Christmas and New Year's and stuff when we sort of close down. And I tell everyone, I'm like, look, schedule, like talk to your coach or whatever with any of my clients. I'm like, we're going to be making sure that you're deloading during this time, unless it's the person, I don't put everyone
have to
under
in
the
the same
same thing.
box,
If they're like, oh, look, I'm home, I want to continue training, that's fine. But most people, if they're on holidays and with their family, they've got relatives staying with them, whatever it is, I'm like, look, just if you want to go to the gym and just do a bit of a workout just to kind of feel good, but just have a bit of a fun session. Like just, we'll program it that it's really easy sessions and just enjoy yourself.
Enjoy the lifting. Sometimes it's like nice just to go in
what
and
happens
lift.
like if we're looking at it 52 weeks in a year,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
you have 2 weeks or maybe even 4, a couple other weeks throughout the year where you don't make progress, but you're making progress the other 48 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Don't
you're
worry
going to be
about
good, right?
Yeah.
Same with your food. Like if you get 48 weeks right and 4 weeks that are not right, you're going to be looking different. So
and it's just keeping up the habit too.
Yeah.
Like we have the last
just-
month, like I've made zero progress,
Yeah.
but I've just gone in and trained
Yeah.
and lifted.
Yeah,
and I
you
just
don't
didn't
go
care about
backwards.
it. Yeah, I
No,
just was like, whatever.
They're never wasted sessions, especially
you
if
feel good.
Even if your strength's a bit down, like you might be only working at 70% of your capacity, but if you're still pushing to failure or as close to failure as you can absolutely do, even if it's only 70%, it's not a wasted session. You're still going to be sending the signal to your body that it's like, oh, okay, I still need to keep this muscle. And it's just...
And that's the key. I think too many women, and I see the same. It's like, if you can't be perfect
Yeah.
or you can't make progress all the time, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. Do not do that.
Don't do that.
Remember, it's the all or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the all or nothing.
So... Did you,
It's the all or something
I haven't
mindset.
heard you say that before.
I don't know. I fucking read it somewhere.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, that's good. I
Yeah,
like
that's a
that.
good
It
one.
is. It's
I'll
the
steal
all.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to be just the all or something. So if you can't do a good session, like where you want to make progress, just do a session.
Yep.
Just stay in the habit. Get
Yeah.
in there, lift. You'll feel like, how many sessions we had this month? We're going, oh, fuck, we're tired. It's going to be shit. But then we've gone in and we've moved and we've done it and we just felt good after.
Yep.
We didn't push as hard. We didn't hit the same numbers. We didn't make any progress.
Yeah.
But it felt good. And then now we're a bit more rested.
Yeah.
I can hit it hard this week.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good,
Yeah.
Got to make some fucking progress.
Make some gains, bro.
All right. Is there anything else that we've missed in that?
No, I think that's pretty good.
Okay, great. Well, as always, guys, please take a screenshot of the episode and share it on Instagram stories and tag me at KITTYBLOMFILD and share your biggest takeaways. And when I say takeaways, I mean like what you learned from the podcast. One woman actually emailed me once and said takeaway as in takeaway food like KFC. I was like, no, that actually happened. Your biggest learnings.
Yes.
Because each month I pick someone who shared and they get a tub of Saturée Premium Collagen valued at $79. So thanks so much for tuning in and we'll be back again next week.